This video will be demonstrating how to create a weighted gauntlet that allows the wearer to easily punch through concrete. We will be using a 10-inch strap hinge, some PVC, and a few extra nuts and bolts. The 10-inch strap hinge is the primary component of this project. They can be found at most hardware stores. In order to make this project functional, the hinge needs to be attached to something sturdy that will hold it in position above the hand. A 12-inch length of foam core PVC will fit this purpose. I use foam core PVC for this project because it is more flexible and easier to work with than regular PVC. Some of the bending and forming that is done later on would be nearly impossible to do with standard pressure-rated pipe. This project is started by taking our 1-foot length of cell core PVC and cutting into it at a 45-degree angle about 3 inches from one end. This cut should be made about a third of the way into the pipe, stopping before it reaches the halfway point. Starting from the far side of the pipe, another cut is now made at a steep angle with the intent of intersecting it with the previous one. Once the two cuts are coming close together in the center of the pipe, it may be necessary to alternate the saw back into the old one if it looks like the new cut is going to miss. The goal is to make the two cuts come together cleanly so that the pipe separates in two pieces. Discarding the smaller piece, we take the remaining section and cut cleanly down the center of the portion shown here. This cut in the pipe will allow the flexibility to make room for the hinge. The hinge can now be inserted into the pipe as is shown, and it should be pushed into place as far as it will possibly go. Once in place, a mark is made in the furthest hole of the hinge to indicate where we will drill a hole in the next step. The hole made should be the same diameter as the holes already found in the hinge, which are typically about 3/8 of an inch. With the hinge back in place, we take a 3/8 by 4 inch long bolt and insert it into the new hole. Since closing this hinge is going to bend the PVC quite significantly, especially towards the front of the pipe, this bolt is necessary to act as a guide that will allow us to close the hinge without allowing it to slip out of the pipe. With the hinge closed as far as possible, another mark is made in the untapped hole. With the second hole drilled, the hinge is replaced and folded closed with the same process used earlier. Through the new hole, a shorter 2-inch long bolt is now inserted and a nut tightened onto it. This will now hold the hinge closed, allowing the longer bolt to be removed. In the finished model, you can see that the bolts used have smooth, rounded heads. I chose these because normal hex head bolts would be uncomfortable to have pressed up against the arm. On the model we're working on, I can now take one of these 1-inch long round head bolts and install it in the back hole with a lock nut on the other side. A box end wrench and an Allen key are used to tighten this nut and bolt down as much as possible. We can now remove the 2-inch long bolt from the front that was used to temporarily hold the hinge closed and replace it with a second round head bolt which is also tightened down. With the hinge fully installed, we can now move on to the handle. We start by making a mark on both sides of the pipe, 1.5 inches from the front and just over 2 inches below the hinge, which measures as about 3 inches if the ruler is bent around the curve of the pipe. Through both of these marks, a 1/2-inch diameter hole is drilled. To now form the handle, a 1/2-inch by 5.5-inch bolt is fed into the hole on one side of the gauntlet with a washer placed both on the inside and outside of the wall. To give the handle more bulk, a 4-inch length of 1/2-inch diameter PVC is fitted into place and the bolt pushed through it. A washer is then placed at the far end of the handle and everything is aligned so that the bolt can be pushed all the way through the hole in the opposite side of the gauntlet. This may take some force. Once the bolt is extending through the side, another washer and finally a nut is tightened into place. This project is now fully functional as it is, but to give it a finishing touch, a saw, sandpaper, or a bench grinder can be used to cut away all the excess PVC and make it look a little nicer. Being careful not to hit my knuckles on what I'm aiming at, I can now use these gauntlets to more than double the force of a punch, allowing me to split concrete blocks in two with very little effort. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to leave me a comment, and subscribe to my channel on YouTube to be updated when I post new projects.